Gentlemen, we are live once again. Thanks for coming back to That's Right, I Said It, where a lifelong substance abuser with no edits, no bullshit, no high dollar studio, just a guy on his lunch break who has to keep a seatbelt on because if I undo my seatbelt, my car will start yelling at me. Let's try it. Maybe it takes it a minute. Maybe if it's not in drive, it won't do it. We're about to find out. I hope everybody had a great July the 4th. I did. And I'm just going to jump right into kind of where I'm at. My last video, I was talking about getting back on my Kratom taper, how I kind of abandoned my taper when my wife and I found out that we were having a baby. It was sprung on us in a huge way, meaning I find out on May the 6th, which is a Saturday, that my wife is pregnant, and then she actually goes into labor and gives birth 6 days later, which is the following Friday on the 12th. So when I say we had no time to prepare for having a baby, I mean that in the most literal sense of the word. We had absolutely no time. We had 6 days to prepare for something that people typically have 7 to 8 months to prepare for, right? Luckily, we're established people. We're okay financially. We had some money in the bank, so when it did happen, it wasn't like it really threw us for a loop in terms of, finances, or we didn't have to go out and, buy a new home or something like that because we didn't have enough space for another child. It wasn't anything like that. We have a pretty decent sized property, and probably will be in this house until the day we retire, to be honest with you, at least, maybe even after that. So we were very fortunate in that way. I guess if it had to happen at any time, this time would have been as good as any, other than the fact that I'm 47 years old, man. 47 years old, and I have a little baby at home. So, I've already started cutting my Kratom use down a little bit. I took 1 capsule less yesterday and the day before. And I'll do the same thing today again. Tomorrow I'm going to start cutting it down by 1 more capsule again. So right now I am right at 11.5 grams. I took about 11.5 grams of Kratom yesterday. I'll do the same thing today. In fact, as of last night, everything was kind of starting to level out. I didn't really have any trouble with sleeping or anything like that. The first day that I got back on the taper, it was interesting because I slept pretty well, but then I found myself about 4:30, 5 in the morning. I woke up and I was like, kind of starting to, come on with some slight withdrawals a little bit, because like I said, around the time that my son was born until just a couple of days ago when I got back on the taper, I was kind of just taking as much as I wanted whenever I wanted to take it. And that's a good way to get your tolerance way up here. And if your tolerance gets way up here and then you go to decrease that, immediately with some sort of taper, you're going to feel the effects of that gap, meaning up here with what your body is used to having on a regular basis in terms of the kratom alkaloid. And then when you start your taper down here, you're going to have this much withdrawal. Is that making sense? Whereas if you're taking up here, and then you start your taper up here, which is right about the same amount, you're going to have this much withdrawal, which is probably not really even noticeable. You know what I mean? But I definitely had knocked it down pretty significantly. So I had one night where I woke up a little early and I kind of started feeling myself just get a little uncomfortable, like in the chest area, just a little bit restless in the chest area. I've been through withdrawal enough times to know what a withdrawal symptom is, and it was absolutely a withdrawal symptom. I was like, oh, hello, my old friend. In fact, he's not a friend at all, an enemy. Withdrawal is definitely an enemy, but it's something that You have to go through, whether it's a taper or a cold turkey, you have to go through some degree of it to get on the other side and to get to the point where you're not taking it at all right? So I wanted to read a comment by at William Ryan 181. My dude, I hope you don't mind if I use your comment as an example. I do that often on this channel. You know, the way I see it is, if people are willing to put their comment and their names, you know, publicly on one of my videos, then I figure you're probably okay with me talking about it on here, because let's get real, anybody could just happen across your comment and see it and respond and whatever. So that's why I'm talking about it. But he said some good things on here, and a couple of things I wanted to address that I thought would be easier to address in the video, because sometimes as this channel grows, I've got almost 200 subscribers now, and you know, all of my subscribers are I have a lot of folks on here that are pretty active and pretty engaging, and they watch each one of my videos and they usually comment, which is great. I'm really appreciative. But I'm kind of starting to, you know, Kratom has its tipping point, but this channel also kind of has a tipping point where it gets to a size and a number of people watching and commenting to where I'm just one measly guy who's a very busy individual as well, with children at home, working full-time, a wife, other family that depends on me for certain things. So my channel's kind of starting to get to that tipping point where I may not be able to respond to everyone's comment, you know, when they comment. And I know you guys understand that, but it does make it easier in some cases for me to address some of the questions and concerns that I might get in this way, just on the video, as opposed to having to sit there and, you know, type out a response and all that good stuff. Because I am, as you guys know, I'm a very long-winded speaker, and I'm a very long-winded response giver, response typer outer. I don't know what you would call it, but whether I'm typing it out or whether I'm speaking it, I'm long-winded. And you know, I can tell sometimes my mom's like, not my mom's. I can tell sometimes my wife, who is a new mom to my son, is like, will you take this freaking baby? I've been watching this baby all day. Would you take him for me, please? Because my wife's been on maternity leave for a few weeks. She started back work herself today. And she's, you know, his predominant caregiver, admittedly. I mean, she's the one that's been spending the most time with him. And that can be stressful, you know, and he's a young baby, and he's one of those babies too that, unfortunately, he's having that thing where he just wants to be held. Even if his diaper's good, even if he's eating, you go and put him down in his bassinet, sometimes he'll be good. You know, if we get a good 10, 15, 20 minutes out of him where he'll lay in his bassinet and just kind of look around and make cuckoo noises and stuff like that, if we get that much time out of him where he's not screaming to be picked up or held, we feel like we're doing good. Because a lot of times, you know, he'll get in those moods where he's not hungry, he just ate. He doesn't need a diaper change, he just had a diaper change. But you'll put him down in his bassinet and he'll immediately just kind of start fussing a little bit, you know? And if somebody doesn't come and pick him up in a couple of minutes, that slight fussing kind of becomes a full-on, like, okay, well, now I'm going to scream to the top of my lungs like a baby siren until you pick me up. And that's what he'll do. And listen, from a person who comes from a child development background, that actually is what my degree is in: human development, family studies, concentration in birth through kindergarten. So I know about young babies and kind of their developmental stages and stuff like that. So as a person with my sort of background, I know just as well as anybody that sometimes you just need to let them cry it out, you know, because you're actually training them to train you. They're actually training you to pick them up, because that's what especially inexperienced parents do. Oh my God, they're crying, how can I stop crying, you know? That so they pick them up. Oh, well, there you go, he stops, you know, because nobody wants to listen to the baby siren, where the tongues, you know, you see the tongue inside the mouth and the bottom lip shaking, and you just like, oh no, you know, that's your child. You feel terrible for them. Something must be wrong, right? So you pick them up. When you pick them up, they stop crying. And no one wants to listen to all that, so you kind of just end up allowing them to train you to always be walking around with a baby on your hip. And it's hard to get stuff done that way, and sometimes you just want a minute to step away from it. So I get that. And sometimes when I'm out typing these responses and stuff, I can see my wife over there kind of like, hello, which she's a very patient, wonderful, amazing wife, and I could not ask for a better wife and mother to my son and stepmother to my oldest son. I could not ask for a better one. God has amply blessed me with an amazing wife, an amazing partner, and she's just amazing on every level. And even my family, my mother, father, brother, my nephews, and just everybody in my family just literally thinks that the sun rises and sets in my wife. Like, literally, my wife can do no wrong. So she's super patient and supportive. She knows that I'm talking to people on the channel and stuff like that, but I do feel guilty sometimes because I know that she's spending a lot of time watching my son River, and so I might not always be responding back via responding via message. I might start doing it this way. But anyway, William Ryan 181 says, he said, I was wondering how your relationship with Kratom was going. You hadn't mentioned it in a while. For a while there, it sounded like you were good with it and had it under control. If you can use it responsibly, then more power to you. Same with tapering. If you have the discipline to go weeks or months controlling your doses, fantastic. I know for me personally, I've tried, but I can't do it. I've realized this recently. It's the addict mentality. My brain will always find an excuse to use. As a matter of fact, my brain will flood me with excuses until I think of a good one. And a little bit of using always leads to going overboard with it. I wish I could just use it responsibly, as it does have its benefits. In the beginning, I was very good about using powder only, keeping my doses low, and only using once or twice per day, and also not every day. But now, with the extract use, it's just taken over, and the negatives far outweigh the positives for me. So very soon, I'll be going the cold turkey route. Anyways, I just wanted to say I appreciate your channel and you sharing your experiences and insights. It's very relatable to my experience with Kratom as well. Really just addiction in general, and you communicate it well. Couple of other points. You are correct about the capsules having some sort of time release effect that lasts a little longer. I have noticed this too. Also, do you have any experience with Kava? I'm looking for alternative methods for winding down in the evenings and just ordered some Kava tea off Amazon. Curious about its effects and if it gives you a buzz, because I really don't want to trade up one addiction for another. That's a very smart point by you. I'm not sure if you're William or if you're Ryan. You're like me. You're a guy that has two first names. My name is Corey Austin, and I've always been known as the guy who had two first names, because both of my names, my first and last name, could both be a first name, right? And William Ryan here, you know, either one of those names could be the first name, but I'm gonna call you William. It might be Ryan, but either way. So one of the main things I wanted to answer about this was the question about Kava. So I'm no expert on this, but everything that, all the literature that I've looked up, because before I started using Kava, I actually looked this up, and from all of the literature that I can, that I've looked at on this, Kava has what is called a reverse tolerance. In other words, the more you use, the actual less that you'll need to use to get the same effect. And it's opposite for stuff like Kratom, right? You get dependent upon something like Kratom, your body becomes accustomed to having, let's say it's at least 15 grams per day. That's where your tipping point is, right? You're taking 15 grams per day, which to me that's a lot, but let's say you're taking 15 grams a day for an ongoing, pretty significant period of time. You have developed a relationship with Kratom where if you drop below that 15 grams that your body has become accustomed to, and let's just say one day you're like, you know what, it's just getting too much, let me take this down a couple of notches and let me just use 10 grams per day, right? And then so you take your usual 15 grams on Monday. Well, when Tuesday rolls around, you cut your dose by 5 grams and you only take 10 grams. You're for certain to notice, although it possibly mild, you're for certain going to notice some withdrawal symptoms with that. You know, whether it just be like a little lower mood, like you're kind of in a depressed sort of mood, low energy, you know, kind of lethargic feeling, like you just don't really have the feeling that you want to get up and do anything. You know, for me, one of the biggest manifestations of this for me is I find myself just not wanting to talk to people. And that kind of sucks because, you know, I have the type of job where, fortunately, I'm not like a salesman or anything, so I don't have to constantly be just, you know, an uppity, bubbly type person. But at the same time, I work, you know, a good salaried job and salaried position. And for me, when I start to come down pretty heavily, like in a taper or whatever the case is, that's one of the main ways that I get affected by it. Like, I just don't want to talk to people. It makes me just, you know, kind of slightly irritable, like a little bit moody, like kind of low energy, you know. And so I feel like it's one of those things where when I get in front of people, I don't want to be that guy. You know, I want to be someone who's pleasant to talk to and who's halfway happy when he's speaking to someone else. And I don't want to be that person that I'm sitting there talking to you and you're just scared to death that as soon as I walk out of your office, I'm just going to go step right in front of an 18-wheeler and just end it because I sound so freaking depressed when I'm talking to you. I don't want to be that guy, you know, which is one of the reasons I like the mood lifting elements of the Kratom. But the problem is the ride has to end at some point, right? Because if not, you're just constantly fighting this recurrent battle of, well, I take the Kratom to increase the mood, but either I keep my Kratom use up here and it has negative physical and mental side effects over long periods of time, and your tolerance will increase, so you'll have to constantly take more and more and more and more to stack the effects to kind of get the same effect that you used to get from taking, say, 7 grams. So now, after you've been taking it for a long period of time, this 15 grams that you're taking is only doing about what, I don't know, half that. 7.5 grams was doing for you a year ago, a year and a half ago, when you kind of first started on your journey with Kratom. And that's the thing about Kratom, it does not have a reverse tolerance. And from everything I've read, Kava actually has what's called a reverse tolerance, where the more you take, and it's actually the opposite effect. So you can take, say, if you take a teaspoon of it and you're doing this every day, eventually you'll get to a point where you need less than that teaspoon to have, you know, the same sort of effect, because it builds up in your system, right? And listen, dude, I'm one of those people. I am very careful. I try to be very careful about what I say on this channel, because I'm not a medical doctor or any sort of physician, or I'm not an expert on these substances, these plants, these roots, whether it be Kratom or, you know, Kava is actually a root that gets grounded up. And I don't have a ton of experience with Kava. I only take it at night. And it's not every night, but I will say I've had some pretty good success with, especially when my Kratom use got down to where it was pretty low. When I got down to like the 5 and the 4 grams and then the 3 grams, and then I got down ultimately to about 2.5 grams. At that time, I was definitely utilizing the relaxing, sort of calming, like sleep promoting effects of Kava at that time. And I will say it definitely seemed to help. And this is something that I talked about a little bit in some of my previous videos. So I'm not just saying it, you know, I'm not just saying it in some sort of response to what you've asked me. I actually addressed this on some of my previous videos when I was getting down to the lower amounts in my taper a couple of months back before my son was born. I was actually utilizing Kava a lot for that. Now listen, everything I can see online says that Kava is not addictive, okay? Now, with that said, in my opinion, everything has abuse potential. And that includes things that you can buy over the counter, like Benadryl, melatonins, like, you know, things like that. You might not, so for me, well, okay. For me, there's not really a psychoactive component with Kava. For me, it's kind of more of a body, like a physical body relaxation sort of thing. And it's one of those things where I found that if I'm not actually laying down and in a, you know, supine position, you know, that's opposite of prone, by the way. Prone is when you're sitting up, supine is when you're laying down. For me, as long as I'm not in the supine position, Kava doesn't really make me sleepy that much. It's more of just kind of a body relaxation. You can feel yourself kind of like, just kind of chilling out a little bit, you know. And it does a pretty good job of not really making you sleepy until you lay down. You know, then when it gets to a certain time of night, and then I've eaten dinner, and then I lay down and stuff like that, I can tell immediately that the Kava is kind of serving to like help me drift off to sleep. And I will say, when I got down to pretty low on my Kratom taper, when you get down really low like that, you do struggle a little bit with, you know, some slight withdrawals and stuff like that. And so I was dealing with that. And I will say that I felt like the Kava was definitely helping me. I will be maintaining, you know, I will be still using Kava as I, you know, continue with this taper that I've started out on now. So, you know, do your own research on it. Because I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not on here trying to give anyone medical advice. But from what I understand, Kava is not necessarily addictive, and I think the way they classify that has to do with the psychotropic effects of it, like whether it gives you like a euphoria or something. If it gives you a euphoria of like oh well, now I feel good all of a sudden, those types of medications, especially like Kratom, Percocets, Vicodins, anything that has that sort of opiate type feel to it, they are very much more addictive than other items that do not, you know, promote that sort of euphoric, mood energizing sort of effect to it, that stimulatory sort of effect, or that stimulant effect, right? And for me, Kava doesn't really do that. It kind of makes you feel better in the sense, like if you're a person that's kind of prone to worry a little bit, after taking something like Kava, I will find myself like, you know, just not really worried about as much, just sitting, kind of relaxing, feeling relaxed. But it's not a, it's not a, I don't know how to say this. The manifestation of it is completely different. You know, it's almost like it's not mental. It's almost like it's body relaxation. And, you know, and I'm sure I'm not doing a great job of explaining this. But, you know, if you're a person that is prone to worry or anxiety, the way that manifests is that these chemicals kind of, you'll start to obsess and compulse about certain things that might worry you, might frighten you, might concern you, and then they'll cycle and cycle and cycle over and over the same negative thoughts, and it is part of like a compulsory measure to where your body's just, your mind is just worried over and over and over about the same negative thought that could be happening. And in my estimation, Kava kind of helps to short circuit that. It kind of helps to throw a monkey wrench into that that cycling of those same, you know, negative, concerning thoughts that people tend to have, or just having kind of a negative outlook in general on life and what's going on with you and stuff like that. Kava seems to kind of, you know, throw a monkey wrench in that, and it kind of disrupts the flow of those chemicals that are causing you to worry. And so it's not like necessarily a good feeling, as in, oh, I'm high now, I took this kava, now I'm high and I feel really good and I'm euphoric and oh I just want more of this. It's not that sort of feeling. It's a sort of feeling like if you've kind of been anxious, or if you're just a person that is generally kind of an anxious person, well, now I'm really not, you know. I almost feel like more normal, like stuff doesn't really bother me as well. So anyway, I'm positive that I'm not doing a great job of describing that. It is far from a professional scientific approach, my way of describing this, I'm sure, but did the best I can with it. But at least as far as I can tell, and you know, all you guys watching, all my subscribers, all my consistent, you know, commenters, engagers, talk to William about this. Let him know your experiences with Kava. At least from what I understand, it has a reverse tolerance, and it is not something that's addictive. With that said, those of us who have addictive sort of behaviors, I hesitate to say anything is not addictive, because I'm one of those people that, you know, I feel like I could honestly just about get addicted to anything. I mean, I've learned that about myself at 47 years old. If anything can be accused of having any sort of positive effect on my psyche whatsoever, even if it can be misconstrued as a positive effect on my psyche, I feel like I have the potential to abuse that substance, right? I've not found myself in that situation with Kava. I bought one bag, which I think it was like a kilo. I bought this one bag for super cheap, for like maybe 40 bucks or so, probably 3 or 4 months ago. And I literally, I mean, that bag will last me another year. At the rate I'm taking it, it will literally last me another year. I take about half a teaspoon of it every night, put it in about 4 ounces of water. I put it in the microwave for about 20 seconds just to get it to kind of mix in there. Take it out, swirl it around a little bit, and I drink it. That's what I do. I've never been tempted to like get up first thing in the morning and shoot some kava. I've never been tempted to, you know, oh, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, yes, I can finally take my kava dose. I've never had that with kava. Then again, I've been on Kratom the whole time, and obviously Kratom has a completely different sort of effect than does Kava. So you know, I mean, as drug addicts, you know, we're kind of like monkeys. I mean, you don't let go of one branch before grabbing onto another one, right? So really the true test for me with Kava is going to be when I come completely off of the Kratom. Now, if I come completely off of the Kratom, I'm not taking the Kratom anymore, and then I start finding myself wanting to drink down Kava 4 times a day, that's going to be your answer, you know? As of now, I've not really had the desire to do that. And I feel like even when I come off of the Kratom completely, I'm still not going to have any desire to shoot Kava down 4 times a day. And it is a root that gets grounded up. So much like Kratom, there's some insinuation that it can be bad for your gut, you know, bad for your, you know, pancreas and liver and just your whole digestive system, because it is, let's get real, a root that you're trying. But the good thing about it is, for me, I take half a teaspoon of that shit at night. That's not very much, and I've never had any desire to take more than that, but because of the reverse tolerance aspect of it, it's like the more I take it, and again, this is once a day. And some days I don't take it at all. Like last night, I didn't take it at all because I had a couple of drinks for July the 4th. You know, plus I'd had my regular dose of Kratom and stuff like that. So I just, with that, with some Kratom on board for that day, and I drank a few alcoholic beverages as well that evening. Not at the same time. I wasn't taking Kratom and drinking at the same time, but I didn't have any problem sleeping, because alcohol has that depressant sort of a feel where it helps you to sleep as well. So I didn't need it last night, so I didn't take any Kava last night. Tonight I probably will. And I've had no desire to just take a larger amount of it, but I have heard of people doing that. And I've heard of people taking way too much to where it makes them sick to their stomach and they regurgitate it and vomit it up and stuff like that. But, just like anything else, man, there's levels to this shit. And what makes your clock tick may not make my clock tick, and vice versa. So I can't really say, it might be something. I don't really care much about Kava, but then you try it one time and you're like, oh, it's the best shit ever. Give me some of that Kava. Just go ahead and shoot it into my vein. Go ahead. You never know. I doubt it. And from what I can looked up and from what I can tell, Kava's not addictive. Take that for what it's worth, because I think certain people just have the potential to abuse anything, and I'm one of those people. So, but I have not at this point had any desire to abuse Kava. I'm taking it one time a day. That's been at night or in the evenings, and I've not even taken it like during the day at all. And again, I've still been taking Kratom as well. So I think it's worth a try. I will say it definitely does seem to help mitigate and lessen the severity of the withdrawals from Kratom, and so I think it is a good thing to kind of add to your regimen as you come off of Kratom. I don't know how much it'll help, especially if you're doing like a cold turkey. If you've been taking a decent amount of Kratom, if you've been taking a lot for a long time, we all know that if your tolerance is way up here, then your withdrawals are going to be way up here too. You're only taking a couple of grams a day of Kratom, you haven't been doing it that long, or it's kind of irregular. You'll go 2 or 3 days, not really take it, and then you'll say, if you're one of those people, then your tolerance for Kratom's probably down here, and then your withdrawals will be down here. They won't be that bad. All of this stuff is correlated with what your tolerance is, how much you're taking, on a regular basis. So we know that. So it's just going to be different for everybody, but just be aware it's going to be different for you as it is me or the next person. But I will say it's definitely a good idea if you're going to do a cold turkey to experiment with Kava some and use it, especially for the sleep piece, for the sleep component, because we know that's one of the worst things about withdrawals is the sleep. And for me, I had one guy tell me the other day, he encouraged me to do it, get it done quick. The quicker the better. While I agree with that, I'm in a situation where I've got a 6-week-old baby at home. I'm already not sleeping. So I'm going to take my time on this taper, more than likely. I know it's probably better to try to get it done and out of the way quicker, but I'm just at a position in my life where I'm going to have to take it at my own pace, because I'm already not sleeping. I don't need to add, pretty serious taper withdrawals into that equation if I can help it, right? But I've already been very clear with myself and with the channel that if this taper doesn't work this time and I don't go ahead and just make the jump at the end and get off of Kratom at least for a little bit and get back to baseline to square one, if I can't do that, then I'm just gonna have to do a cold turkey, but I feel like I will this time, because it sucks having to reset your life every 2 or 3 months. You work your way back up to where you're taking a lot, and then next thing you know, you're like, well, damn, now I'm taking too much, so now I'm going to start cutting it down again. And then you start experiencing the slight withdrawals from tapering your amounts down and stuff and it becomes like this shitty vicious cycle. It's just like, oh no, yeah. Anyway, keep up with my status. Let me know what your status is. Love you guys. Subscribe to the channel if you've not. Like the video and comment down below. I will see you guys next time. All right, peace.